thank you so much for coming on the pod. Really appreciate you being here.
Thrilled to be here.
So for those that don't know, now coming out as Union Stage Presents, you all own or operate 6 venues, doing thousands of shows a year, over 200 employees. Quite the operation you've made out there in DC. Did I get that all right? Yeah.
You got it all right. We're so thrilled. It's like a big 23-year success story, that kind of feels like overnight to the public, but for us, it's been a long haul.
23 years. That's definitely a meaningful chunk of time. And
it is.
And you got some big news, right? So there's this rebrand. You're picking up the Pearl Street. Why don't we start with the announcement? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. The rebrand has been something that's been a discussion for 2 years that has been in motion sort of formally for 5 months, which involves a brand new website, all new social media, just some new visuals and branding that make each venue kind of stand out and connect the dots for the public. It just so happened that Pearl Street Warehouse, we took over management of Pearl Street Warehouse. And it's next door to Union Stage. And it was this perfect addition. We have an amazing relationship with them because they've been our neighbors for 7 years, and it just worked out for us to manage it and run it. And it's been amazing so far, but that's the 6th venue. So now we have this rebrand that's happening. Howard Theater is amazing historic space that we're telling people about that we run, and now Pearl Street Warehouse as well. It's been really cool. It's been a busy time post-COVID. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be so much to talk about, like how to run that big of an operation, keep it going, how to do it efficiently, effectively, what the challenges have been. But why don't we start at the beginning? My understanding is you're a musician. The brothers were musicians, studying in college. A venue space opened up, and I feel like I might be putting words in your mouth, but I feel like it's like this classic example of like a father being like, hey, yeah, that's cool that you want to be a musician, but maybe you should come run this business, like a venue. You tell the story.
Yeah, no, it's actually, looking back, I'm 45 years old right now. I was 21 years old when this all went down, so I was quite young. So looking back, I've got this new perspective. And gosh, I had just graduated college. My brother Luke was working for Electro Harmonics, which is a guitar pedal effects company in New York City, had 2 little kids. And we were the first to come down
on the market, right?
Yeah, it's very cool connection for my brother. My brother's a great guitar player too, so he had a great gig. But and then Jonathan followed a year later. But anyway, our dad has always been our biggest supporter, and he's been mover and shaker. Yeah, I take after him in a lot of ways. And so he had relocated to Northern Virginia and was working with a guy who knew a guy that their venue wasn't working out, and they needed some young, sort of hungry types to come in and take over for a steal. Let's just call it that way. For a steal, they were suffering, and it was like one of these like, please take. Looking back, I'm like, oh my god, like they were like probably like jumping for joy when we signed those papers. We were thrilled and excited, but also so young and naive at the time. So anyway, he was the one who discovered, and I remember getting the phone call. I was at this apartment I was living in post college, probably going to my like Starbucks job or whatever I was doing. And I got this call, and I remember it being like, okay, dad. Cause he's always working it. You know what I mean? He's always, okay, dad. And then one thing led to another. And I found myself driving down 95 and walked in the doors of Jammin Java as a young musician, let's not forget. And they had a stage. They had a whole coffee shop set up, which felt good. And don't forget, this was when Starbucks, probably a couple years prior, had just completely went crazy in the late 90s. So this was very like cool sort of Starbucks on steroids vibes. There was a recording studio, like a beautiful freaking recording studio adjacent to the concert space. And then upstairs, they did private music lessons. It was like literally a playground for a couple young guys who just were already kind of oriented towards music and looking for their path in life. And so we were just wide-eyed and excited. And my brother Luke and I had a band and we're playing music together. And we literally thought, and we laugh now, that we could take this over for a steal, run it, and just have it like support our touring career. And so we made records in the studio, and honestly, it all went great. We were signed to the original Paste Records and had some really sort of cool little success in it. But holy crap, was it a smack in the face when within 3 months of running this place. And this is when you would get I had like crates of like CDs with like physical like booklets for press kits, and like people were sending me like 8x10 like headshots and stuff like that. This is like a long time ago, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I would have to, I mean, of course, email was around, but it was like 2001, man. And
yeah.
so that's how it all kind of connected. I think the other interesting part of the origin story that I always like to mention, because I think it does say a lot about us and really tested us, is that this was 2001, and the conversation started in May. Everything's in motion, and the papers get signed on, or are set to get signed on October 15th. I'm in the lobby of Jammin Java on September 11th, 2001, and the Pentagon, is 10 miles away. And you can just imagine. And so had this moment
I'm
of
piecing it
like,
together. Yeah, I'm piecing it together. Okay, wow. Yeah,
yeah, like the September 11th. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
And so you can only imagine. We ended up pushing through. And again, I just share that because I guess I'm kind of proud of ourselves, like we didn't bail. We didn't jump ship. We pressed through. We signed the papers and we kept moving despite all that. And I think there's something to that because it really tested us.
Yeah. Wow. No kidding. I mean, it's always great to hear the origin story of these things, but I didn't piece it together there. You being so close to the nation's capital, and obviously like right around like 9/11. Like what was that like? What was the significance of running a venue around like the 9/11 moment?
It was, I mean, for the whole world, everything stopped. And I remember, just paying attention to the news and having it be so close, just in DC. Of course, we're from the New York City area. So we had all that going on too, in terms of family up there and all kinds. We were like very tied into what was happening. I think we benefited greatly from being so damn young. I mean, I've heard other entrepreneurs say this. There was a certain naivete that was happening and just sort of a certain blinders on, head down thing, passion only kind of approach to what was happening. And we love music a lot. I mean, we really love live music and we love shows and we love this stuff. So it kept us going, I think in a lot of ways. And, I think the family business aspect also kicked in because Luke and I, again, it was just Luke and I to start. Jonathan came only 1 year after, so he's been here since then. But, we banded together like full on. And it was very much family team effort and do whatever you got to do. Just do whatever you got to do to make it all happen. I found myself booking every show, booking every music lesson and down there, checking people in at the door, selling beer and running sound sometimes. I mean, craziness.
So what was the first show? What date?
Oh my God. Well, so the official, and it's interesting when you take over music venues, there's often shows on the books.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I've been dealing with Poetry Warehouse and then Howard Theater, sort of. And so it's all fine, but you've inherited some stuff. So the papers were signed October 15th. We were in there in good faith a month or two prior, just constant trips down from Jersey where we lived, just to get to know employees, get to know the space, like just start cleaning things up, making phone calls, getting to know the neighborhood. I mean, we're not even from DC, right? So we had all of that. We had a learning curve. I mean, it's embarrassing in a way. I remember being on the phone with like agents and stuff. I mean, you're talking to a guy like who didn't really even know money deals, like in terms of booking and stuff. Like I just can't even believe looking back how green we were. But like I remember we were like, I think like months in, and some people were like telling us about 930 Club and stuff, and I was like, "Oh, okay, really? Yeah, like I haven't been there." Like, or like these other clubs, and then I remember this one agent, it was like a folk agent, said so. I was calling about some folk act or whatever, and he said something to the because you're introducing yourself. It's a brand new space, so you're introducing yourself to everybody, and he was like, yeah, the Barns of Wolf Trap. So and so just played there, a month ago. Or a couple months ago. I think it's too soon to come back. And I was like, literally, I don't even think I knew Wolf Trap was in Vienna, but it was that close. And it's like this massive, especially around here, very well known shed and has an amazing small space. Awesome. So anyway, I'm speaking to the naivete. It's funny to laugh at now. It was a classic entrepreneurial thing of like head down, passion only, fake it till you make it, like go, 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 scrappy all the way. I mean, just like making it happen.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, sometimes I have these conversations and, I hear things like you basically signed your lease, on 9/11 in 2001. And part of me just wants to park at that moment and like keep talking about it. But I guess like just went on. I mean, it was a very significant and interesting timing. Is there anything else you want to say about that, or should we just keep moving? I mean,
keep moving.
It's a fascinating, but like you always remember when you signed your venue. They say that, right? Like.
And there's always going to be like I'm learning now that I'm more seasoned that like there's always going to be, especially certainly within a decade, probably every 5 or so years. Like, oh shit. Like
For
for any
sure.
for any business owner. I mean, you're
March
talking,
11th, 2020 is
bro.
one, right? Yeah.
I mean, you got
Sorry,
that, and then
March
just
13th, Friday the 13th. Yeah.
yes, yeah, classic.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you just start tracing it back to the financial crisis. You go back.
Yeah,
We
for
had
sure.
the, you know what I'm saying? So I just think that's what I was saying. Like I feel like we were like thrown into the fire, like in every possible way. Tested. I mean, it already would have been too much to just take a venue over at 21 years old that was losing a ton of money, and yet we did it at this time. So I just feel like, in hindsight, wow,
And I
like
think, yeah, and as these like kind of history, making moments occur, I've felt this with Prism along the way. Like, there's always these moments to say, like, can I start
yes,
this business right now? Can I keep running it? And you look back a lot of, at a lot of like crises, whether it's financial crises or, stuff like what happened with 9/11. And, a lot of cool stuff was started during those times with entrepreneurs just saying, you know what, like what happened was terrible, but life goes on. And I want to help contribute to, peace on earth, which is really what this music industry is
you
all
nailed it,
about, if
man.
you ask me.
You
All
nailed
right.
it, man. That's
Yeah.
great.
Well, then let's in that similar spirit, let's keep moving through it. What was you were spelling out the first year, like lots of crazy hustling. Like what went well with the first year? What did not go well? And this is Jammin Java, correct?
Yeah, just Jammin Java for over a decade is just all we
Oh, for
had.
over a decade. Interesting.
Yeah,
Give me the capacity again, just to.
about 240 standing and then 180 seated.
And it's still running today. It's in
Oh
your
yeah,
in your
same spot,
portfolio.
same routine.
I mean, keeping a 240 cap room alive for 20 and thriving, let alone in over 23 years, is like absolutely incredible. I'm excited to unpack that quite a bit more, but let's stay in the story. Reflect on that first year. Like,
Yeah.
was there moments where you were it was like you might not make it? Like, yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh,
what went better
100%.
than
All
expected?
the dude, all the classic like hero's journey kind of entrepreneurial stuff. 100% multiplied by a million because of September 11th, because of our age. Honestly, like I look back to, it's a silly name in the suburbs. It's really like an ugly strip mall too. Like it's like it's crazy how much was stacked against us. I lived probably the first 5 years sort of insecure, I would say, like maybe more of just running this business. Not only are we going to make it, but being out in the city, having sort of a goofy name that we inherited, oh shoot, we should have changed it when we started. We weren't thinking like, and sort of kicking yourself and having that sort of low self-esteem because you haven't really done anything yet in your life and you're still kind of making your way. That did shift over time. And the secret sauce for me, I mean, again, team effort, but for me personally, it was getting immediately finding a knack for booking concerts for me individually. I remember sitting in the office with my brother Luke, very, very early days. And again, this wasn't a very like high level business operation. Everyone was just doing everything. We were all just making it happen. And I remember Luke started emailing somebody about booking. And I felt this like thing in me, like this clinging, clawing. I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that. And it just like morphed into this thing that like, I don't know what it is. Like I took to it immediately and had a knack for it and liked it and got it and got really excited about
What
like
what did
craft.
you like about it?
I just crafting a calendar. You're talking to a music fan, a musician, and this is our space. Being able to present shows in like a really formal, really cool way. And I still get a kick out, and I see booking as like part art, part science. And the art part too, and the exciting thing of it is you can really craft a really amazing calendar, and you can kind of look at it on Prism, and be really proud of it. You know what I mean? And could talk about booking for forever, but what it was, and I'll never
Oh, it's
forget this.
awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that I remember like this like businessy guy came in, probably one of my dad's friends or whatever, like very like businessy corporate dude, nice guy. But like, so what are we gonna what ideas do you have for like something marketing plan, business plan, all these like like corporate jargon and stuff? And I literally I'm like book as many shows as humanly possible to get as many
Book
people
more
in here and
shows,
let
yeah.
it feed on itself. And so that's what we did. We let the shows, the only business plan, the only thing was to book to fill the space with as many events of all types, including concerts, mostly concerts, but of all types, day, morning, noon, and night, as much as possible, so that people would get exposure, so that the shows would be their own marketing, so that the place, and I see this with venues, like I see them as living things, and like just get like it's like when you hit the gym and you just feel freaking amazing and the blood's pumping, that is a lot of events. I wasn't precious. I immediately started from a place of this is a place that anyone can play. And part of that was like, because we needed just people in the door. But part of it was also like, it was a clear aspiration of ours of like, this should be for everybody. It's a small space. Like, we don't have to be too precious. The local band, the little kids concert during the day, business meetings were happening during the day. We had a church renting on Sunday mornings. And of course, yeah, you'd see the pops of these headliners and stuff that everyone would talk about and be excited about. But we didn't like build it around that. And we didn't say, oh, we're too cool for Squirrel, or we only do singer-songwriters, or we only do this. We never did that from the beginning. And I really believe that like broad machine gun fire approach to booking is the thing that got us the traction we needed and got us noticed. And then there was a need, and little did we know, because we were dumb and young, DC needed a venue like this.
Yep.
We were welcomed, you know.
So, I mean, when you said it's part art, part science, I think you went on to, you know, say a good amount of both. I'm like, are you like when you're describing this, are you describing more of the art side or more of the science side? And I think you did a good job of like laying out both.
Yeah.
But let's double click on the science. What's the science of it?
Yeah,
the
precision part, the math part, the money deals.
Yeah. So how do you make a 240 cap room work?
I would say the best thing Jammin Java proved that we've been able to do is, and again, necessity breeds like invention, right? And all the pressures I've already explained many times. But we had an innate ability from the beginning. Two things. One, my brother and I were musicians. So, okay, we legitimately toured, and like we were not like completely unknown. But we had some real gigs, and we knew what it felt like from day one to be tired coming off the road, to have a good experience, a bad experience. So I think that was super huge. And then the second thing is like being a chameleon. And I really believe venues allow themselves to be pigeonholed way too much. They don't have the entrepreneur. I keep saying entrepreneurial thing because it's that inventive spirit. It is that thing of like always creating, yeah, we could like just being a yes is how I think about it. Like, we don't say no, we say yes. And it's like, it's the classic thing of like, yes. And it's like, oh, you're a solo singer songwriter. Great. Here's 180 chairs. Here's like, you know, Bob Dylan in the background on the house music. You know, no raging, whatever. Lights are just right, and then boom, boom. Okay, you're like Soja, Soldiers of Jah Army. They started in DC. Like, oh, you're those guys. Oh, well, it's a different thing now, and we can do that. And we had the extra bartenders, and it was the house music louder, and the lights are a certain way. We stay open later. We weren't like, oh, we close at 9:30. You know what I mean? It's like, and so we. This is a part of the welcoming thing. This is the part of the family vibes. This is the part of the inventive spirit. And this is the part of like the love for music and people's creative expression. It's not just, I'm hitting on both art and science here, but that's,
yeah, for sure.
That's how we got to this place. That's how we got to this place. It was like that energy was out there and people like loved it. They like really felt at home coming into this place, no matter who they were.
Yeah.
No matter who they were.
Yeah. So are you doing like 30 events a month? Yeah. So you're constantly open, huh?
Yeah. Well, there was an era when kids concerts were actually a thing that it ended, by the way, but there was a moment. So we actually at a time did a kids concert every morning, Monday through Saturday. A church rented on Sunday, so that's the daytimes. Monday through Thursday, we always had one show for sure. And then Fridays and Saturdays, Saturdays, we most often had a matinee and then an evening show.
Oh, wow.
And Fridays,
so
I would always...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then sprinkle in like weird business gatherings and like just other stuff because it's the burbs and because it's a small space. So we kind of had that like coffee shoppy kind of vibe. So, and music lessons were happening upstairs, right? So we had those components.
How big's the team at that time, managing all this chaos?
I want to say
staff and all, yeah.
Not that big. I mean, maybe 15 people. Sound guys were contracted in. It was one, maybe two guys max. And my brothers and I did everything mostly, right? I booked it. Luke helped with everything, marketing, all the stuff. And Jonathan became the ops guy. He was there. He lived there for the first decade, ran every show, was always around.
Well, you know, I had asked like how to make a 200 cap space work. And like the answer that I'm hearing right now is just like an incredible, expression of energy that you're sharing here, and just like, book the crap out of it, 60, sometimes 60 plus events in a month. How do you sustain the energy of that? Cause it's a small event. compared to whatever 20,000 capacity
I know.
event, but it's still a ton of work, right? To do each of those
I
events.
know.
So how do you keep
Well,
that team inspired and, burnout free and
yeah.
motivated and doing
Yeah.
that much heavy lifting? Yeah.
No, I got you, man. And that's partly
Pun,
why
pun
we had
intended,
that.
perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah, no, big time. And that's partly why we had that itch to open Union Stage, which is 500 capacity. And then things got that feeling of like, wait a second, we could put basically the same amount of work into shows two times, three
Yeah.
times, five times as large. And that, you say it, everyone who's listening knows this stuff, but we took us a minute to kind of see that as a possibility because we were hand to mouth pretty much, you know what I mean, for
Yeah.
well over a decade of just get by, yeah, like maybe it was a little bit of small thinking, but it was also like necessity. You're just a small business owner at that point. You're just a small business owner. You're waking up, you're running the business, you're locking the place up, go to bed, wake up, do the thing all over again. And that's just the routine we got on. To keep people inspired, I mean, honestly, the Jammin Java is pretty legendary in how we've been able to create all the vibes and the community. It's always had it, man. It's so freaking cool. Like we've got like people coming back who used to work there all the time. We have people who are still with us 20 years later from Jammin Java.
Wow. Incredible.
Family, big time.
Yeah.
And new generation now, like a whole new generation of people. And there's something about the hang there that with the artists and among staff where they end up renting cabins and going away together, unrelated to the company, or they're hanging out all the time together. Everyone becomes friends. People date. Everyone's dating. All this kind of stuff starts happening. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, what the two words that are just popping in my head right now is like passion and purpose.
Yes.
Like so many people have. You're in DC, so there's a lot of folks that perhaps don't feel as passionate about their like high paying gigs at the Capitol and whatnot. But doing something close knit with the family, like doing something incredible for the community. I mean, this is what I'm picking up. Am I picking up on something though? Is that?
Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah.
That plus you got to pay rent. I mean, literally, that's part of this like yin and yang about keep hitting on. But like, there's also like literally like fear and payroll and rent and all that kind of stuff. Just like, I mean, I definitely spent the first decade in that brain space of mostly anxiety, fear, which created a lot of it made me productive, but a lot of it was from that. A lot of the busyness was frankly, and I know this now because I'm 45 and I've been through a lot now, but like, it was definitely, I don't want to like paint too rosy a picture. It was not, it was a survival-y kind of mindset for about a decade, I'd say. Doesn't mean great things didn't happen. Doesn't mean we didn't do great things in the end of the day, but it was definitely not this just like cozy, like always feeling passionate thing. It was also like, oh shit, like rent is due and we have to just like scramble and make stuff happen.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I think you kind of started saying something that I think was a natural segue. You have all this volume happening, and I think it naturally spills over to Union Stage. So, like, what Union Stage was the next move? What year was that? And let's go. Let's dive into that. Yeah, starting Union Stage.
Totally, man. We had promoted some concerts in other venues around 2011 and 12. That started. The first one actually was pretty cool at Lincoln Theater in DC, an IMP venue. And we worked with Seth Hurwitz on the Civil Wars when they were blowing up. The Civil Wars had started at Jammin Java. They did one show, then they came back, did two shows in a night, and then they insisted on us working with them. So Frank Riley and Seth were all about it. It was 2012, and it sold out. Felt really great. I think that's the first time I met Seth in person, and it was a smashing success. So those things happened, but that was more steps along the way to us sort of being like, oh yeah, like there's more here for us. And one thing led to another. In 2016, the opportunity to take on Union Stage came up. It officially opened at the end of 2017, to be clear.
Okay.
It is at the Wharf, which is a waterfront location in Washington, D.C. that was totally and completely redeveloped. It was sort of nothing, and then it became this whole massive construction project. So we transformed what was essentially going to be like parking underground into this really cool club. Walked in, it was, water was dripping, construction space. It was all concrete. I've got the pictures. It's wild stuff. But we had people who helped us catch the vision. It also helped that Anthem was opening, all set to open a couple blocks away. We felt like a certain level of interest because we knew that they do great stuff, and it felt like a nice step for us because we'll be in good company, and the developer is like amazing, by the way, too. He got it as well. We just felt like a good move. So that's how it went down. But again, it was like a classic, like, oh my God, once we got into it, we were in construction for over 6 months. And anyone who started businesses listening knows, I mean, you often get really excited about these shiny opportunities. And then you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, just driving down every day talking to contractors and like, like it's crazy, but amazing. And honestly, it changed our lives. That's
Yeah,
when everything changed.
I've heard this analogy before that it's like you're like trekking through the woods on this tumultuous journey, and the lightning strikes, and you can see the destination, and it's so
Yeah.
clear. But then the lightning goes away, and you're like
Yeah. I
stepping in
love that.
puddles, and
Oh, I love that.
hiding from bears and doing all that crazy stuff.
I absolutely love that.
Okay, so what day did you open Union Stage?
New Year's Eve 2017.
New Year's Eve with the pop, huh? You sell out?
Yeah, it just played itself out that way. We came right down to the wire with the construction, but we did it. Opened. I happened to have my first child like a couple months prior, so that was the whole
Perfect
thing that was in the
timing.
mix. Perfect time. Test it again. But we trudged along. We had all of 2018, all of 2019, and then COVID hit. That's the history there.
Yep. Okay, so before we go into 2018, 2019, I guess I'm just learning something now. So you Jammin Java almost exclusively for 15 years, is that right? Before you got over to Union Stage?
Yeah, I was managing bands. Not that this is really the point of this, but I was managing a lot of bands for many years there, and we were promoting shows in other spaces like the Hamilton, like I told you about the Lincoln Theater. So, but yeah, that's in terms of venues we owned or operated. That's it.
How many shows were you doing outside of the Jammin Java before then a year?
It varied, but anywhere from 0 to 5 in a month outside of Jammin Java.
Oh, okay, yeah. So not a ton, but also not an insignificant amount.
Correct.
And was the Hamilton the main space? And
so this is, oftentimes when I lose sleep about stuff, and I feel like this is another theme developing that you totally get, but like, so the Hamilton opened and I was like freaking out again. I mean, I'm like, it's in the city, it's $20 million venue, it's this beautiful space, and I'm like, we're going out of business. You know what I mean? I mean, we got nothing here. Granted, it's bigger, but still, I knew it was going to take some shows away.
Interesting. Yeah. How big is the Hamilton?
I don't know what they advertise now, but I think at the time when it opened, it was only seated, and it was 450. I think they've changed that since then.
Yeah.
But I knew they would skim some shows off, and they had C3 booking it at the time with way more money than we do. And long story
C3
short,
was out there in DC too. I didn't realize.
Yeah,
that.
for a minute.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. Yeah, for booking the Hamilton only, as I recall. And I was freaking out, but I ended up befriending the guy that started it at the company, going down there. One of our good buddies became the sound guy there. And one thing led to another. And I was like, listen, guys, you're starting up, and these bands if anything that's like selling out and happening over at Jammin Java, I just tried to get some action down at Hamilton for it. So that became like a nice little, like, we satiated, we made friends out of the potential enemy.
Yeah,
which is you learn to live with them and help each other out. You know what I mean? In that way. But then also for us, it was that further like thing developing of like, we got to do more. We can do more. Oh my God, we could totally do this. Oh, now we need our own space. Is what it grew into.
That's interesting. So you're doing an amazing amount of shows over at Jammin Java and starting to naturally book some other venues, and then it just kind of like the need essentially was kind of revealed itself, and
100%
needed a space to kind of put all that stuff. I think this is let's come back to the Union Stage. I think this is a good moment to segue and talk about competition a little bit. I think, you started to talk about it a little bit with IMP and, with the Hamilton opening, and, and it sounds like there's like a nice kind of collaborative environment out there in DC, but at the same time for, not being the biggest market in the world, there's like a whole lot of juggernauts in town.
It's crazy. Yeah, man.
What's
no
been
doubt
your experience with competition in DC, and how to make it work? I think it's a great example for the world. I love to see so many independent promoters thriving in DC. But talk to me about it a little bit. Yeah,
totally, man. I'm not going to say this is another easy sort of rosy thing, but I have to toot my own horn because despite my discomfort with being the little guy for so many years, despite my discomfort with venues opening. And by the way, it was not just the Hamilton. Other clubs open. I've been here since 2001, right? So a lot changed. And a lot changed. And all businesses deal with this, right? Like everyone's got competition. It's part of the deal. Despite the discomfort, taking a pause and seeking taking the high road at every turn, and
Yep.
taking the co-opetition approach, to be able to cooperate and compete, not always easy. And the
Yeah.
frenemy approach, it's like, yes, we're buds. Yes, we're competing. Yes, you're a pain in my ass, basically, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's the deal. And then also just attempting, again, not always easy, to measure our success based on our own performance, like where we're
Yeah.
at today versus where we came from, versus that common trap for all of us, in my opinion, of comparing. Of defining our success based on how we're by comparing ourselves to other people, therefore always, in my experience, feeling inferior or not good enough. And so that's been a constant effort on my part, not always easy, to do that, because I'm like sitting there, I'm like, wow, yeah. And then allowing like compliments to settle in was another huge thing for that. It was like, we love Jammin Java. It's the greatest place ever. We always look forward to this stop on our tour. I heard it a bazillion times. And at first I'm just like busy and harried and like, yeah, got it. And then at some point you're like, wow, this place is great. This place is awesome. Like, so we took that approach, and it's worked up until this point. I'm not going to say I'm a pushover, and anyone who knows me, I'm not. And I am a tough businessman. I think I am. But I'm also an asshole, and I don't want to perpetuate that. And it's just not our thing at all. And I believe I do know how to pick my battles as it relates to competition, and not play off of like emotion as much. And again, I've failed. I want to be so freaking clear. I think we've all gotten that super annoying email and like, done. And like, man, like, but now I like maybe type it up and don't send it. You know what I'm saying? Like, just sort of keep the peace on a level, and maybe like I said, take a pause before reacting.
Typing up the email, like I think both allowing myself to type away the email and allowing myself to walk away from the email has like both saved me, because I vent it, but then I walk away, and I have more often than not don't send the email.
It is still very, very hard, because we're in business. And we're in life. This is personal stuff too, personal life, personal relationships too. Again, no one's perfect. I'm not perfect, but it's definitely, and I honestly credit my brother Jonathan with probably being the most, and Luke's super chill too. I'm the most high strung of the three of us, but Jonathan is probably the best person I know of like diffusing the bomb, is how we talk about it, and taking the high road and picking your battles and just easing the thing versus what I probably did mostly in my early career of just being more intense and combative.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting because you're in a market. Would I say it right? There's about 700,000 people, kind of.
I think more than that, but I should know that. I don't know. I think it's more than that.
I'm not sure. Yeah. Maybe I was looking at like the Metro versus the Cosmopolitan or something like that, but it's not, it's not New York City. It's like a, kind of medium-sized market, and you have an anomaly of an independent promoter in town.
Yes.
Live Nation's also in town. But I'm sure it's this double-edged sword where, it all kind of creates a thriving music market. Correct. Would you say that's the case? Like, what's the balance there? Like, in one regard, I'm sure you'd wish you were the only promoter in town, but with all these other folks in town, it's got to contribute to this thriving live music market.
I think you're right. I think IMP is amazing. I think they're amazing at what they do. I think they've been good to us overall in general. Funny story, I worked there for 2 years.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah, I'll never forget it. I was sitting there.
We work with IMP too, so definitely shout out to them.
They're really incredible at what they do. Yeah, but I'll never forget. I was just working away, and my cell phone was next to me, and I was like, "Oh, Seth Erwitz is calling. Why is he calling?" And it just became this thing of like, we need an extra booker. So, 2015, 2016, 2 years there. So I get it. Like, in terms of all that, but I hear you. I think they've done so much for DC to make live music such a special experience, and not like a disjointed one or shitty clubs and stuff where people love going to concerts. I think they've trained the public really well, preceding us or anything that we've ever done. I think the public needs that like level of training, just to be like thinking about, I want to go to a show. You know what I mean? I want to go to a concert,
absolutely.
And how to get to these places. It a live
music market for sure.
Yeah, and these are places you want to go. They feel safe. You can get there okay, all the stuff. So we're definitely, riding that wave, and I think we've benefited for sure. I think DC has definitely benefited. Live Nation's friends of ours. I've known Mark Mangold for over 20 years. He runs the clubs and theaters and stuff here in DC. I call them a friend. I think their team that they have here in DC are just awesome people, stand up people. They get it. So we work. I mean, we work with them, on the regular, and I've appreciated that partnership for sure. So yeah, more of the same deal. But yeah, you're right. It's a very unique city in that regard to have the big companies, and then also have IMP and now us, of course, being these really like robust. And IMP is way larger than us, to be clear, but IMP and us being these robust, independent promoters with many, many venues as well. That's another distinction, right? It's not just one or two clubs. Like we have 6 now, right, that we operate or own. So it's a lot.
What is it about the culture of DC that there can be this many thriving venues and promoters? And one of the things that we said is IMP directly contributed to that culture, but I'm sure. I mean, I'm here in Austin, which is not a small market, but also not there's 4 other markets in Texas that are bigger in terms of population, and it's a thriving live music scene. And it was a hippie town, and Stevie Ray Vaughan and Willie Nelson, like these were all kind of essential components of making it a music town. Like I was frankly surprised to find out that DC was like such a thriving music market. Is there anything you could kind of guess or hypothesize that what's in the water out there that there can be such an awesome market?
People describe it as recession proof. I don't have facts around that, but the federal government is here. Like this is the federal government. I mean, I'm from Jersey. All right. Like I'm from I'm Montclair, New Jersey. Like, I mean, it's different. That was how I grew up. That was my world. And when I came down here at 21, I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was like, soon I realized I was like, oh, you work for the government. You work for the government. You work for the government. Yeah. And IT is huge, which obviously like AOL started here and sort of in those early 2000s. I mean, it's crazy. Like the whole like IT world is massive here. So you've got some really, really stable financial elements that are happening for people around here.
Yeah.
The flip side of the government thing is obviously regimes change, if you know what I mean. So people come and go and move in and out a fair amount, but still you've got, federal and local government workers with just a lot more stability. There's a lot of stability. And I'm not the one that came up with that, but it feels recession proof to where there's just it's a thriving area typically, and people have that disposable income. They have money. They have money for it.
Asking some questions like I'm a 3rd grader in regards to throwing concerts in the nation's capital. I mean, how much do you feel like you collide with politics and just being in the nation's capital? Yeah.
We don't take side. We stay neutral. We just 4 walls kind of a mindset. We've done events for all sides and shapes and everything over the 23 years. We don't try to be like too intense about that stuff. And that fits the union thing. I mean, that's by design. We really want to make sure we have that open thing I talked about at Jammin Java's early days. These are stages for everybody within reason. Of course, we're not going to book. You get it, people spouting racial stuff or horrible things. I mean, of course we have morals and we have all this stuff, but within reason, we do it all.
Super. You ever get have you ever had like Secret Service?
Oh my God.
We have a special person that wants to come to a concert
all the time. Yeah, especially at Howard Theater.
Let's hear some stories. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. No, it's crazy. Especially at Howard Theater. I mean, the president has been there twice in the past 2 years.
Awesome.
Kamala was there. Kamala Harris was there for her husband was on stage within the last 4 months. So that's often I'm not as tuned into like the stuff on the ground, but like I feel like at Union Stage we just had that as well. No, they just descend upon the place. Oh, I know what it was. The Atlantic magazine had a big festival over at Pearl Street Warehouse, and I was down there. A lot of dignitaries down at the wharf, and all the guys and gals with the earpieces were just like roaming around, and I'm there kind of working at Pearl Street, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, like someone's coming in, like this. They're like scanning and like prepping and talking to our security people and all the stuff. Like, yeah, it's real.
Like someone's kids, Obama's kids, I know, like to go to shows, and
they go to shows. I'm actually, God, what? General Allen's daughter is a friend of mine. God, I'm forgetting his first name. Very like, what the heck is his first name? John Allen, General John Allen.
Yeah.
Like general in the U.S. Army, like badass. I remember he came and there was extra security, but also like just senators. I mean, especially at Jammin Java, like that like thing. Everybody's got like kids and stuff, so like. We'll do like Battle of the Bands and like, and then music lessons. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's like a senator in the front row. Like that's DC, man. Like it's like, I would say like pretty common that kind of stuff happens.
Interesting. So I mean, that's something that's abnormal about the DC market. It's just
Yeah, it's very unique.
having the secret service of direct line to you,
Yes.
if you will. When does it show up like Secret Service? That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. What's it like working with them in general? Do you find them to be competent and yeah?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had no issues. And I'm proud of our security team because our stuff that we've done with president and vice president and others recently has gone really, really well. So,
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
so interesting. That's really, really cool. All right, well, let's jump back into Union Stage in 2018. I mean, definitely a great detour into competition and throwing shows with the Secret Service and senators and all that. Definitely really, really fun stuff. But you got a venue to run. Okay, so 2017, doors open.
Yeah.
You had 3 glory years before COVID.
Yep.
Like, what was happening, leading up to that glorious year?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was great. We grew. So we had to hire about 40 more people. We found a really great booker and it became a friend and added some marketing people. So that was really fun to see. It was fun. It was fun to get out of that, like small business stuff and feel like, oh, wow, there's like a team here. It's not just my brothers and I and a couple people, that was really cool. That was really awesome looking back. It was kind of the glory days of like things were simpler then. It was pre-COVID then and a smaller team and just a more tight knit thing that was happening, less shows, all the stuff. Things went great. I mean, again, picked a great location. We were a couple blocks from the Anthem. Pearl Street Warehouse is next door to us, so it was a really cool place to be, with a lot of activity built in, and it ended up working like really well. I mean, we hit the ground running. We thought it was going to be a little more of a Jammin Java on steroids. We thought it was going to be like a lot of seated stuff and sort of we'll do like half seated and like standing, like more Jammin Java but bigger. It just turned into a cool small rock club. And I use rock loosely, of course, but it just became that. And that's a part of what I keep seeing, and not to belabor the point, but these venues just they're like people or whatever. It's crazy.
Yeah,
like it just needed to be that. And it just wasn't the right thing for seated. And we went with that. And so we do seated shows, we do comedy, we do podcasts, all this fun stuff, but it's 85-90% not that. It's mostly just other stuff. So that was another cool thing. Like we just took on a whole different genre. That was probably one of the cool things too, is like we just started booking like really cool shows, up and comers. Like stuff I wasn't anticipating getting access to.
Yeah.
And it changed our lives. I mean, we finally got a club in the city, a cool club in the city, no more silly name, with the right capacity, and they're booking real tours. And because of the visibility that happened there, people just wanted our help. So we started adding stuff from there, even before COVID, in terms of other spaces and all that. So that was cool.
Yeah. So out of the 6 that is underneath your umbrella at that point, are you counting it as 2, or have you taken over other spaces?
It was 3 at the time. Miracle Theater.
Okay.
Miracle Theater is a 350-ish capacity historic theater that's a second run movie theater.
Yeah.
It's so cool because we have amazing places like Lincoln Theater and Warner Theater in town, and this is what you're expecting. It's a large 1,200 to 2,000 capacity historic space, row seats. You get it, like one of these old theaters. Miracle's that, but like small. So it's so friggin' intimate and cool. It's a second run movie theater, and the people that own it are friends of ours, and they do their movies and they do all kinds of other events there. We just drop shows in when we can, but we do a lot. I mean, I don't know, I should know the total, but we do a fair amount of shows at Miracle and absolutely love working with them. But it's very much like we're the exclusive promoter, but we like swoop in, do the show, and we like disappear. And then there's like a movie the next night. Like it's not a club, and it's not something where we own the whole thing or anything like that. So been a great partnership, and was another cool way to like start building things and have alternatives for Jammin and Union at the time. If this things got booked up, we're like, oh, we could just do Miracle. We started to have that.
So fun. All right. So where did venue number 4 come in?
The people that own Miracle started a venue called Capital Turnaround, which you experienced at NEVA. And anyone who's listening who came to the first NEVA event in DC, the Capital Turnaround was one of the main venues that was used. They opened that. And we had Hannibal Buress booked, I want to say, but COVID hit. It was booked for like April 2020, I think. And we were so freaking pumped. We were showing off this amazing new space that they built, and it just really revving everything up. And it was like, poof, like just gone. As so many people have stories like this, I know. So that got delayed a couple of years. We ended up, I might be getting my facts wrong. I think it was Hannibal, and I think that we did reschedule once or twice. And I think his shows were still our first shows. They ended up being a year or two later, but they were still our first shows, two in a night, both sold out, and we were off to the races with that. So that was like established pre-COVID, but we unfortunately didn't do a show until post-COVID at that theater.
That's interesting that it was the first show that canceled, but also the first show that actually like went
Yes.
off. Like that was a big kind of question in my mind is all these shows got delayed as opposed to canceled. And like they
Yes.
all, I was kind of wondering if they would all go off. And like I had bought tickets for Black Pumas before the pandemic at Stubbs, and at the time they were just this local band, and they had just broken through and sold out 5 nights at Stubbs. And it's like, what? Oh my God. And those concerts too were in April or something. And that was the first show that I went back to in April. And I remember I was walking around the venue and it was sold out and there was no masks. And
Mm.
it was my first moment of like, I was in there for maybe 5 minutes before I was like, wait a second, I'm in a sold out venue post
Yeah.
COVID. Like,
Yeah.
there was a moment where I questioned if this would, one part of me questioned if I would ever be here again. I had to like pinch
Bro.
myself a little bit, right?
But I had that experience too. I saw I saw War on Drugs at Madison Square Garden in the winter of, I want to say 2022. And it was like spiritual. I did not know.
Agreed.
First of all, they're amazing. It was amazing. The shows, it's completely insane. Like I love them. Second of all, like, yeah, I went with a buddy and I was just listening, a little buzzed, but listening, had no idea how much I needed it. I had no idea. I was so back to survival mode. What are we going to do? Our clubs are closed, reschedule. And then I was just sitting there like enjoying a concert.
Yeah.
It was crazy, bro. It was like spiritual. Like I was like, this is beautiful. This is special. This is like, we're back also. It felt good, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Hannibal Buress, side note, he's opening up a venue. They're using Prism for it. Yeah.
Where at?
You know, I don't know. I wish I knew more. I don't know how much I'm supposed to say either.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
dude,
yeah,
that's
but
sick.
They're opening a venue. Yeah, I was really happy to kind of. He like posted on LinkedIn. He asked questions about Prism, and people. Like,
oh, I love this.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'll tell you more as like.
Yeah, when you're in.
Yeah. But Hannibal Buress is definitely legend for sure.
Oh my God, yeah, we've done well with him.
Okay, so Capital turnaround post COVID. Let's just keep going through. Where's venue number 5? Yeah.
Yeah, full on famine to feast. We shrunk down to like 10 employees, probably, give or take, and kept things going best we could. Had to. And then Capital turnaround, I told you, had its first show, and then Howard Theater became an opportunity. We reached out to Howard Theater. We knew they'd been shut down for a couple of years. Those of you who don't know, who are listening, like 1,200 capacity room, a historic space, absolutely insane legacy, hitting 114 years this year.
Yeah.
And was shut down for many years and then restarted by a guy who's now a friend of mine, Chip Ellis, who we've partnered with along with Blue Note in New York City to
no kidding. Huh.
Yeah. Yep. All good friends, good partners. And collaborate.
Steve or
yeah. Cool. Yep, Steven and Sion, more brothers over at Blue Note, and then Chip locally here. And yeah, it's been a lot, but we this is a big space, really special space. Had a lot of issues just physically. It's these big buildings, man. Oh, baby. Like these big buildings, it just doesn't stop. But we did it. And, we've been doing it for a while, but we're telling people more publicly about it now that we've sort of completed mostly the transition. But that truly changed everything for us because we added
it's quite the jump.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful space, man. It's got a beautiful balcony with built-in seats, with booths, and then an open floor, probably 150 or so in this balcony, and then with great sight lines and stuff. And on the ground, like massive bar in the back, big stage, big sound system, put in a brand new sound system post-COVID.
Love it.
Lights are good. Yeah, like it was kind of like just needed that TLC. It needed the thing that we do, which is like we turn places around, but we've also got, like I've been saying, the passion head down mentality, like the scrappy, like make it happen thing. And we like lived it. I was literally personally back to like meeting plumbers, and like there was a whole plumbing thing, and I would be down there like during shows, like running, meeting the guy, go downstairs, check in. Like we did all the stuff to like
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, fun. We got a few extra gray hairs from that, but
fun.
Yeah, fun.
No, I mean, like meeting with the plumber in that moment, but I think what I was getting at is just, how hands-on you are. I think that's fun.
Appreciate it.
Just how
it is,
how much you roll up your sleeves. Like
it is.
And meeting with the plumber too. I mean, I remember when I did my festival, I got to know the electrician, and I'm like, how many
Yeah.
festivals have I been to where I never even
Yes.
considered that someone needs to figure out where the city line is,
Yes.
like
I love that,
how much
man.
voltage we need, and yeah. So I stand by that word, fun.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. Yeah, I try to remind myself of that. Oh, this is fun, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems like you approach it with a great attitude and spirit, and but yeah, let's get down to the brass tacks. 200 capacity is very different than 1200 capacity. How was that transition? Yeah, I mean, obviously you did stuff in between, but your
Yeah,
bread and butter was 200 capacity for 15
you nailed it.
years.
Oh, I was drinking out of a fire hose for sure. I mean, it was a
Yeah,
lot. Plus, we had the structural sort of building stuff we were working on that's now past us, to be clear. But yeah, it was a lot. And post COVID, I mean, the place had been dormant for years,
yeah,
and during COVID, so it was big. It was a big deal.
yeah. How did you
First
get
show,
that fire hose turned on? To get bands that could play that venue.
yeah,
Yeah,
our first show was Giveon. Our second show was Maisie Peters.
yeah,
I think she was booked at Union and got so big that we moved a show. I moved the show to Howard, I believe, and we've been able to do that. And it's helped get us the traction we needed at Howard. The other thing with Howard is it is a known space, right? So like the industry typically, the agents and stuff typically know Howard Theater. Um, so we just had to kind of change the conversation around what Howard Theater is and just really prove that we were the ones doing it now. And it was taken on, we were ushering in a whole new era and stuff, but we didn't have to say, so we're thinking about opening a space, or we just launched a new thing and you've never heard of it before. Like there was some awareness from agents and bands and stuff, I think, which helped. But we also had the ladder started to get built because we had Jam and we had Miracle, we
yeah,
had Union,
yeah, yeah,
Union's
yeah.
500, and you're like, boom. So there was actually and then Capital Turnaround. Granted, it's a theater, was 850, and so it wasn't like that big of a shift. I think the jostling part for us was honestly probably mostly the operations side, less the booking side.
Yeah.
Because on that level, when you have like certain types of acts in there, like we have like 23 just security people in the space, like just security, forget all the other staff that have to run something like that. And we made it happen, but I'm drinking from a fire hose probably for the first 3 months.
Yeah, so you had built up the booking flow is a really interesting topic to me. But it sounds like you had just built up, the 200 to 400 to 500 to 800, and there's probably enough bands that had played those rooms that should have been in a 1200 capacity space.
Yeah, exactly
The
correct.
calendar, and then then it's all the press around the Howard and your reputation and getting the word out. I mean, it is such an interesting concept because the booking flow does emerge from like the agent side, right, and the artist side, and a lot of it. I'm sure you're going out and making your own stuff happen too, and just like if
Yep.
you were, it's a curious topic of mine because at
Yeah,
the end of the day, you have to attract the business to come
absolutely.
to you.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. I mean, your summary is perfect, and they're attracted by how we do business as well. I mean, the bands need that. There needs to be a need, and I think, and I'm happy there has been a need for Howard, because many probably could have made the argument that there wasn't with
Yeah.
other clubs to play in town that are around that size, but
Yep.
there was a need. And then I hope the industry sees like how we operate, and hopefully we try to make agents' lives easy in a way. Yeah, we got the space for you. Let's do a fair deal. Let's just get this done. Let's move forward. Your band just sold out Union. Let's go here next time. Your band just sold out Union 3 months in advance. Let's just bump it up. And then these are opportunities. We just did that with Royal Otis. I mean, we just did it with McGee, I think, too. Like cool success stories, like real happening bands right now, like blowing up, and we can go and move them right up to Howard. So I think we're also that's another aspect that the public doesn't have real awareness of, but the industry and I think agents and bands appreciate, because Maisie Peters, I think, was another example of that. She blew up so fast, and it's like, oh wow, I remember her walk. I was in the room. She walked up to the balcony and looked at how beautiful Howard is, and she's now pretty well known, obviously, but at the time she was playing a club, and she was like, whoa, she's like, this place is big. And because all the other the clubs on the tour were small, and people didn't have that opportunity to bump to a larger space. So that's been a cool dynamic, is to be able to do that midstream.
Yeah, it's always one of my favorite topics is just the how you fill these spaces out, and it's like such a simple question, if you will, and a lot of people are kind of like are probably this close to it. So like, what do you mean? Like I just got all these agents hitting me up, but to the outside world, it's like definitely you were talking about like more art than science, and I think with that one, it's probably a lot of both, but a whole
Yes,
lot
you're
of
right.
art, like what you do with the space and what are people's reaction to coming, but you're still relying on this whole,
Yes.
the artist showing up, and it's,
Yes.
it's just it's a fascinating thing. And
It is.
with the advent of social media and all the creator tools and economy that I think is probably more friendly to these types of endeavors than back in 2001. My hope is that more and more artists just kind of pile into the industry and
Yeah.
eventually find their way to really great venues like yours. But sometimes I like to zoom
Yeah.
out and just think about the whole machine.
Yeah, well, I think there's more artists. I think that's partly what's happening. Totally, man. Especially during COVID, I think all of us were. It was famine time, and all of us built up this huge appetite, and artists too. They had all this time to, and also question like what they're doing with their lives, and be like, I'm going to make music. I'm skipping the coffee shop gig or whatever. And I think that's a lot of what's happening. There's a lot of freaking bands out there, and they're really freaking good. Like there's a lot of amazing talent, more than ever before. Hard to keep up with, honestly, that have allowed us to do what we do. Like, absolutely.
Yeah. On that note too, in terms of the if you build it, they will come kind of vibe. Well, I kind of stole the word. I've heard that vibe is a very important word to you all. Let's hear about that a little bit. Yeah.
So it was early days of Jammin Java. That was back when I was talking about Jammin Java and our venues needing to be chameleon spaces where you could have the singer-songwriter one night or in the same night as some crazy reggae band and a late night party, and to be able to cater to both by creating the right vibes. And so I think it was a sound guy friend of ours who kept saying that, like, let's vibe it out. It was like a very thing that just like stuck. It was like, what do you think of this? What do you think the vibes tonight? What's the vibe tonight? Like, and so we like say vibes like way too much to the point of it being annoying. But right now we took over management of Pearl Street Warehouse and we're working on the vibes. Like there was a lot of amazing
number
things.
6 now. You just got into it. So number 6. Cool.
Yeah. And this is something we enjoy. And it's mostly my brother Jonathan and I that sort of set the tone. But, just finding ways to make the space feel great to people, having like a real high attention to detail. Furniture placed just in the right position, the poster hung just right, lighting, sound, house music, the right level, people flow, like how you flow into spaces and kind of overthink in a way and ultimately get to a good spot. We're building out a whole patio outside of Pearl Street but just absolutely obsessing over the vibe in terms of it feeling like a place we all would want to hang out. So yeah, vibes. Yeah, vibes.
Yeah. No, I think it's really cool that we're a part of an industry where it really is if you build it and they will come. Sorry to get on this kind of like philosophical kind of spiritual kick, but it's interesting. I think that's perhaps a message to the world that anyone that wants to get in on this. But I think the people who are doing it, it's like so obvious to them that when I ask about it, it's kind of like, oh, what are you talking about? Of course, if you just make your space really cool, like the concerts will just start flowing. But I don't think it's so obvious to the rest of the world, and it's cool to hear you all focus on this.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we obsess over it. It's the people, and I think it flows from the top. I think it's another business thing that people listening would like relate to. Is like I had to learn that early on that it all flows from the top, and ultimately, as an owner, we need to take responsibility for what's happening. Yeah, and can't be just bitching and moaning and complaining or pointing fingers. Like if it's a good experience or something went weird, like we have to own it either way. And that, but related to the people that work for you too. And again, we're not perfect, but if you're cool and chill and gracious and want to make people happy and aren't lying and being weird and like setting that tone, and you're actually people who love music and genuinely care and show up to shows and get excited when a certain band gets booked, it feeds the culture. And then all of a sudden, like we have like security people that sometimes I roll in and I'm like, wow, she's so friendly. I love that. Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
Like, I want more of that.
Makes such a difference. Yeah. It's such a difference in someone's day,
I want more of that for us.
Yeah. And then people come back and then the fans come back. And it's like the whole, it's cool. It's like, I mean, I think you said it right with vibe, you're like you create you like reverse the gravity and draw people towards you to the extent that your vibe allows it.
Yes.
Well, we stayed on a story the whole time. So let's just jump around and do some fastball questions.
Sure.
And so just kind of warning, we're going to be jumping around quite a bit here and make sure we cover all the topics that I want to cover in a short period of time. Let's talk. Okay, so you got 200 employees now. How do you keep 200 employees engaged? That's just a lot of chaos to manage. And what's your advice about, keeping 200 people focused and pointing in the right
direction?
Yeah.
We have gone through a 2-year phase of personal growth and company growth consciously. And that has involved an outside consultant and an incredible amount of, for myself as the CEO, just personal development, I'd say. And just like, and even like business stuff, which offline I can tell you some of the stuff we've been up to. But
Yeah.
we out of necessity, because we were growing so fast, and this dual thing of like, holy shit, we're growing so fast, I don't want to mess this up, but also, oh wow, wouldn't it be so cool to do this? We created things like a really beautiful accountability chart, for instance, where it's so uber clear who's in the right seat, all the way down to the bottom of the organization. And it has drastically improved communication, operations. It's a lot of freaking people. Payroll's insane every 2 weeks. A lot of coordination, and there's always going to be drama with employees and stuff like that. But it has helped a ton to implement the stuff we've learned, like from all those damn business books I've read. Again, out of necessity, because we needed it bad. And so that's how we do it. And then we try to model it. I mean, my brothers and I try to be cool dudes. I mean, we have to be communicative, highly communicative, open ears, sensible, reasonable, not assholes. I think that helps. I really do.
Yeah. How, I guess, a potential for a shameless plug here, but what's your tech stack? And obviously your Prism customer, which I deeply appreciate, but how does Prism help with all that, and and what else do you use to run your business?
Yeah. Prism's been amazing. Took on Prism maybe almost 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. We moved out of Google Calendar. I had a really efficient system in Google. I've seen other venues Google calendars, and they weren't what we were doing, but so it was actually pretty functional. And Prism took it all to like the nth degree, and like took a lot of what I was doing and put in a place that just had more structure, especially as we're adding venues, and stuff like tech was also super a conscious thing for us in the 2-year development phase, where I was like, we need tools. And so like, we need tools. Like, it's getting to a place like we got to have tools. We can't just like scramble anymore. We can't just like hope it works out. We have to have checks and balances. We need structure. We got to manage the busyness, or this is going to like literally consume us, and we're going to fail. So that's been a game changer for us to have that. We are in Prism all the time. Me less so, but the booking people, holy crap, 6 calendars. You can imagine. That's been incredible. Next,
usage is really strong. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. I've heard the stories. Yes.
We love it.
Yeah,
we love
it's a lot. Next is Asana. Cool. I don't know if you know Asana. Holy crap. Yeah. Nice. Beautiful. Yeah. We just couldn't keep track of, what my problem was as a business owner was, one, everyone could find me. And 2, I'm a fixer, like by nature. And I have a way to like, just like fix stuff and kind of like do that thing. And so I became this, like, everyone would just come to me when there was like major problems. And what I call them was like aliens rearing their head throughout my day. And it just became like stuff that like I hate to deal with, like HVAC systems, and like, just a lot of operation stuff for me is like very draining, and energy wise, like super draining. And by having Prism too, but Asana, because it's based on tasks, tasks and projects. Cool. For those who don't know, holy crap, you could just dump annoying HVAC project and identify an individual to do it, and really flesh out the job and track it. So it got out of email. You know what I mean? It got out of just blowing up my phone and other people's phones on text. And we do that too, by the way. But I would say those are the 2 biggest tools.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, Prism and Asana. What about like ticketing and other stuff?
Ticketing? We have two Ticket Web. We do use Ticket Web at Howard. And then otherwise we have an in-house system that we've worked on through a software company.
Are you hooked up to the Prism Ticket Web integration for Howard?
I believe we are. Okay. And I'm not as tuned into that, but I believe we are.
Okay, cool. If not, let's side note it. You have an in-house ticketing app.
Yeah, I call it in-house. I mean, it's a software.
We talked about this briefly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Why did you go that route instead of?
I hate to ruffle any feathers here, but because of, frankly, horrible experiences at Ticketfly and Eventbrite. I mean,
fair enough.
I just got to be honest. I mean, it was really hard for us as small business owners. I mean, I could go on about the issues, and nice enough people, but
it changed hands, and there was stuff that happened. I get it. Yeah.
But even during Ticketfly's era or whatever, we built a system. We built a system when we just had Jammin Java. Got wooed into Ticketfly, very rocky. Got transitioned and forced into Eventbrite. COVID happened, they held our money. It was craziness, and I negotiated a way out. And I was like, we want to like just own this now and take
Yeah,
it
fair enough.
on.
Yeah.
Granted, we're not going to have all these bells and whistles. And by the way, these ticketing companies, bells and whistles weren't that exciting anyway. And I
Yeah.
don't know that they're actually selling tickets. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so we just took it on, and it's a lot more work. Like it's definitely like owning a home versus renting is
For
the way I
sure.
would describe it.
Yeah.
But it's working for us for now. We are probably getting too big maybe in the next year to be doing it the way we're doing it right now, being honest and frank. But for now, it's been awesome to have that control.
No, I totally hear what you're saying. I think about this a lot on the ticketing side. I mean, like we're not getting into it. We are friendly with a bunch of companies, but there is this like, you know, kind of divide between using some software systems that are obviously stable but owned by, you know,
Yes.
Live Nation and AEG, and then there's, you know, upstarts. And if you had an
Yep.
experience with, you know, an upstart in the past that, you know, it didn't go well, like there's not a real home for, you know, independent ticketing companies. Sorry, for independence in terms of an independent ticketing company.
Correct.
And I do think there was a vacuum that was left by Ticketfly. I was talking about this on my last podcast. You know, if they had never sold to Pandora, which eventually flipped to Eventbrite, I
Yeah.
wonder if there would be a legitimate Ticketmaster competitor by now. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I think ticketing's weird because there's a strong allure. I see it. Like I get it. Like you're just making
Yeah.
money off all these tickets without in your
With the
sleep, basically.
passing the fees on, and they don't feel it. You know? Yeah. It's
All the
interesting.
stuff. But for some reason, I've just found it to be a difficult thing. I'm just very like gun shy when I have these conversations with
Fair
ticketing
enough.
companies. It's just been
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Let's keep going with some fastball. What are you excited about in the future? Generic.
No, the new branding stuff. We talked about it right at the top. Union Stage Presents. We just launched it. We finally had an ability after adding all these venues to the portfolio.
Sick new website too. Yeah.
Brand new, all new website. Very proud of it. All new social media.
With the pizza clicker, because I know you got
with a pizza mouse, pizza
venue.
clicker.
Yeah.
Yes, because we do have a pizza place and we have good pizza at the clubs. So we went with the pizza cursor. Try to keep things fun. Another theme of the conversation. By far, it's been awesome. We were like adding stuff. We COVID, right? So everything fell apart. But then we started just adding stuff, and it was all these disparate parts. And we would like promote some shows just under Union Stage's social media, and like, but it was a Union Stage in the club. And then we're like, man, it's time. Like we have to like jettison to this next level. And so we created the umbrella company. Now we have an ability to showcase all the stuff. Now we have an ability as we add new things. Not that I'm trying to do right now, but as we add stuff, we now have a place to put it all.
Yeah.
So that's the most biggest thing we got right now.
I mean, you know, you just took over Howard and Pearl. But do you foresee 7 venues in the future, 8, 9, 10? Not even.
It's, you know, there is something I can't talk about it, but there is something very exciting on the horizon. A very large space in the city.
Okay.
And I would say in the next 3 months, where it'll start coming out. But that is it. That's it. I will not. No more.
It's like having 8 kids. It's like, you know what? You know, maybe I don't need to have 9 kids. You know, I only have 2, but yeah. I'll save 8 for my rabbi. He's got 7. Is
that right?
Yeah. Anyway, I don't think they're done anytime soon, too. But you know,
wow.
I get it.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
6 venues is a lot. That's a lot of kids. You know.
Yes. Yeah.
Can I pry a little bit for this potential space, or is that about?
I wish I could say more. No, I hear you. I wish I could say more because I feel like it's on the cusp, but it is a big space and it's in the city and it's not a club. I'll just leave it at that. It's not a club.
Well, maybe come back on and talk about it when you got more to talk about. Cool.
Definitely.
What's your prediction for the future of the music industry in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you see it growing? Any trends that you think is interesting? Yeah.
It's funny.
Big question. Yeah,
that's a big question. And I don't know that I have an amazing answer to it. All I know is the wave we're riding now feels really good.
Yeah.
That things feel robust. I mean, I can only speak about DC, you know what I mean? But in terms of people going out to concerts, I mean, it's not amazing this moment right before a presidential election. I remember that.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Is it slow right now?
It's not fun. Yeah, no, it's not perfect. Stuff is I would say overall stuff is underperforming. Now, it doesn't mean everything's underperforming, but I remember this from the past presidential elections, specifically those every 4 years. Not everyone, but I feel like there's always this October calendar looks so good, and you're all fired up, and then you're like, oh, man, I forgot this like weird inconsistency. So, but I'm hoping that's all it is.
I'm hoping about to cough out a hairball, a big old hairball on clinching for that day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And plus, don't forget people's jobs locally,
Fair enough. Interesting. Yeah, because I've had venues around the country just tell me general election anxiety, but with you, there's some folks I don't know if they're moving out of town, I guess, huh?
Well, that's exactly right. And the sort of
Interesting.
character of the city can shift with the different parties that are in control. So
Yeah,
that
you
is
see
real.
that happen in real time. The
yeah.
character shifting, super interesting.
It's very real. I mean, it's not that, as you said, not that big a city, and so for that something like that to shift, you're talking about a lot of people with different types of big changes. But we'll get through it, and I think things are robust. I don't see it stopping. Technology's helping us a lot. Seriously,
for sure.
I think it's helping people buy more tickets. I think concert going experiences are better than ever. People are like, I don't know. I just feel like it's easier to make it all happen. Even just getting checked into a show is just like so much better now. Like.
Yeah.
So
we were talking about the future and we got sidetracked into the kind of election coming up and whatnot. So, but it's great to hear you're feeling optimistic about the future and the wave that we're on. And I mean, I don't think you would be taking over all these spaces if you weren't optimistic for the future.
No, exactly right.
No, I mean, I think there's grounds to be optimistic. Kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, there's more creator tools than ever before. There's more artists. There's more access to data. There's more ways to blow up on the internet and actually kickstart your tour and whatnot. Although having a good TikTok song doesn't always translate to having a good tour, but it certainly helps.
It is true. It does help. And that stuff is very real. Plus we do there are podcasts that are blowing up. There's people that are doing incredible comedy acts that just become
having a moment. Oh my God. Yeah.
Completely insane. And really talented people doing stuff like on Instagram or TikTok. And then they come in and do like really well. So, of course, music is our main deal, but I've definitely seen that. We get excited about those like alternative things. And I don't know why it would stop. I mean, it just seems like it's getting better and better.
Yeah, I mean, when I look upon the landscape of AI and digital advancements, I feel really good about this industry because I think, if digital advancement takes over, the need to actually see real humans do real things is also gonna take over too,
Dude, I've said that from the beginning. I was like, live music. I mean, it's how it started is like a individual with a guitar or whatever, or singing by a piano or whatever they're doing. Live music was always the first thing, and there is
in the
nothing
caves beating on the drum,
I've always said that. I was like, I feel like, and it's always, at least in our world, generally quite affordable, despite economic
for sure,
especially at the small clubs. It's it's always going to be affordable for people, and you're always going to want to have that live experience. And we saw it in COVID because it wasn't allowed, and you and I just both shared our experiences of coming back. I mean, we're like, oh, I need this.
Totally.
There's a real need. I don't think it goes away ever. I know. Forget all the technological stuff. We're always going to want the human connection. We're always going to want to be near these performers and artists and just the arts in general. That experience of creativity is the biggest, best, most important thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great one to end on. We'll end on a positive vibe. What do you say?
I like it. Let's keep those vibes going.
All right, cool. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's been amazing. Thank you for doing it.
Yeah, you bet. All right. Good luck for the future.
Thanks, man. You too.